We're absolutely thrilled that Barry Gardiner, the Shadow Trade Secretary, has agreed to join us at very, very short notice. So thank you very much.
Hot foot from the Food and Drinks Association, so my mind is not quite focused on the problems of the Middle East, but hey, we'll get there.
This is giving me I think a well-earned rest. I'm using this as an opportunity to have a rest and not go up and down the corridors here. So we'll have a nice chat. I wanted to start by asking you, the relationship between Britain and Israel is one that the government makes a great deal about. We heard earlier on from the Middle East Minister Tobias Ellwood about the fact that relationship enhances the UK. I was just wondering, from a Labour perspective, would you concur with that? And how important is that relationship to the Labour Party?
Oh, absolutely. Look, it's a fundamental relationship. And I hope it's also seen as a fundamental relationship in Israel. So that it's not just the Labour Party that sees our relationship with Israel as important, but I hope that the people of Israel also see their relationship with the UK Labour Party as being fundamental. I mean, if you go right back to 1917 and the Balfour Declaration, and our very first cabinet minister, Arthur Henderson, and his very clear statements there about creating Israel or Palestine as a place for Jews to come back from all across the globe, and to live for their economic and social prosperity is absolutely fundamental to what we believe in the Labour Party, and I hope that people in Israel feel that the Labour Party has that at its core, because we believe that to a great degree the Balfour Declaration and our role in that is part of our core.
The history of the Labour Party and the Jewish community and of Israel is well known. I think it won't become as a surprise to you that there's concern about the relationship between the current leadership and Israel and the Jewish community. How would you like to see, and how will, as a Shadow Cabinet Minister, how will the Labour Party seek to repair ties which are clearly strained at this point?
Yeah. Look, I think yesterday I attended the LFI, that's the Labour Friends of Israel lunch, the annual luncheon, which I have to say is always very, very good, both for the conversation and for the food. And Tom Watson, as our deputy leader, was there, and I thought gave a remarkable speech. And I say it was remarkable, not because not because of any great policy announcement or anything like that, but because he spoke from his own personal experience. And it was about how he had first visited 25 years ago and visited again this year, and the impact that it had had on him both in his youth and now. And I think there are many people, and there are many people within the Labour Party and within the Labour movement who have an incredibly strong personal connection with Israel. Now, look, you allude to the problems that there have been and the way in which they've been dealt with. We've had the Chakrabarty report into anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. And you specifically talk about the leadership of the Labour Party. Well, there was the deputy leader yesterday, and I don't think anybody could have doubted his commitment. And actually, I don't really believe that anybody who knows Jeremy Corbyn could doubt his commitment against anti-Semitism, against anti-racism in all its forms. Jeremy is an incredibly principled human being who has opposed racism in all its forms all his life. And there have been people within the Labour movement, as there have within other political parties, who are and make racist statements and make anti-Semitic statements. They need to be dealt with the full force of the rules that the political parties possess, and that is absolutely right. But let me just say this. I found it extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, that the Labour Party, that has always prided itself on opposing racism, opposed apartheid, opposed all forms of anti-Semitism, was being taken to task in the media in quite the way it was at a time when the Conservative Party had just run a mayoral election in London, a mayoral election campaign in London, which was the most racist campaign that I can ever remember as a major political campaign in this country. And I did think that there was a certain element of the press that wanted to shift the focus and blame the Labour Party. And it's not to say there weren't problems, and it's not to say they didn't need to be dealt with. But actually, you know, we had just seen the most racist political campaign I can ever remember in that mayoral campaign for London. And there was never any apology for that.
Obviously, we're not talking about that today.
No, indeed.
UK's a relationship.
But I'm just trying to even up the score here a little bit.
Okay. I don't think it's a point scoring thing. In terms of the recognition within the leadership of anti-Semitic anti-Zionism, where anti-Zionism crosses that line, that's a term that's been used particularly by Alan Johnson from BICOT. There is a line that's been crossed. Do you think, as the Home Affairs Select Committee suggested, there is a lack of understanding of where that crosses the line, and perhaps there needs to be more action taken where that happens within the Labour Party leadership?
Yeah, look, I do think that there's a lack of understanding, and the distinctions which, to those of us who are close to the community and who represent sizable Jewish communities, there are things that we find familiar that many other people who live in other parts of the country where the Jewish community is not as strong, where the relationship is not as strong, actually really don't understand those distinctions. I don't think that's unique to the Jewish community. I think it's as you know, I represent a community in northwest London, which is the most diverse community in the UK. It's the first constituency that ever had more people voting in a general election who were born outside of the UK than were born in it. But there are many parts of the country which are much more uniform, and where the sorts of distinctions that you're talking about really are not properly understood because people don't have the contact and the normal.
That includes within the leadership potentially.
Well, look, I'm not. If you want to give me any examples, I'm happy to deal with them. But I think in the Labour Party, as in any party, there are people who are more familiar with different communities because they're a strong part of their constituency and they have strong links into those communities. In other parts of the country, they don't.
I know we need to wrap up, so I want to ask you one last question. You mentioned the Balfour Declaration earlier on. This is something, obviously, that's a big focus at the moment for supporters of Israel within the Jewish community and will be for the next, and outside the Jewish community for the next 11 months. Is this something that the Labour Party will be happy to mark and to celebrate?
Of course. Look, in fact, we already have. There was a debate in the House of Commons. My colleague Catherine West spoke in that debate, summed up in that debate, and spoke incredibly positively about the importance of the Balfour Declaration and of our support for it.
So if there are any public events that leaders are taking part in, your leader or very senior figures within the party will be happy to attend?
I will certainly be happy to attend. I can't speak for any of my colleagues' diaries, but of course, it's something that we're absolutely committed to, and it was a very important moment in the history of the State of Israel, and it's something that we're proud to be involved in.
Okay, just one final thing. Would you like to see Jeremy Corbyn visit Israel? I know he's visited before, and do you think he should be going again?
I'd love to see Jeremy visit Israel, of course I would. I'd love for more of my colleagues to visit Israel. It was one of the most important things I did when I became a new MP about 20 years ago. I was approached, actually it was by Luciana's predecessor, David, who was then the director of Labour Friends of Israel. he asked me if I'd go on a delegation, and it was absolutely fundamental to my thinking, framing my thinking, to have that experience. And the great thing about it was that LFI didn't just take you to meet all the people who were going to say nice things about the government or nice things about the state of Israel. We went, in those days, we went into Gaza, we went into the East Bank, into the West Bank. We actually met with Arafat, and that was all done by LFI. And it was an educational process that was really, really important, because it showed to me that Labour Friends of Israel was fundamentally about transparency and democracy. And that is why Israel survives and deserves the friends that we are to Israel, because it is a transparent, democratic society that upholds those values in a part of the world where that is a very, very scarce commodity.
Very good. I think that's a good moment to finish. Thank you very much for doing this.